I want to give a little more details about my pitch calling system, pitch calling box. Now that my son is a 14U catcher, and now with the high schools allowing pitch calling communication devices between the coach and the catcher only, it's only one way. I thought it would be a good time to investigate this and see what's out there. You know, there's systems out there where there's radio systems that have been out there. Of course, there's the MLB Pitchcom system, which is several $1,000s. There's other people make radio systems that work with an earpiece on the coaching side. Maybe you saw in the College World Series, there was catchers and players were wearing like an iWatch type device. That's made by GoRoute, and it works off of cellular. That is like $500 or $600 a year. So there's some of these that have subscription services, and some of the radio systems are thousands of dollars. And so my goal was to build something inexpensive, but had high quality, and test it out in his last year of travel ball before he goes into high school. So I did some searching online, and then in one of the Facebook groups I'm in, there's a person named Erik Gulbrandsen who figured out how to tie all this together using some Raspberry Pis, and I learned a lot from him, and he's the one that figured out how all the software and Raspberry Pi would work, and I just took that and asked some questions and then repackaged it into a nice pretty box. But let me talk a little bit about the box in general here. So when I started this project, I started out trying to 3D print the box, and that was okay. I was having difficulty fitting all the components in, but then my son actually suggested using like a Pelican style box, and I thought that was a really good idea. It keeps everything protected, and everything's neatly organized. So I chose the Nanook 905 box just because of the dimensions that it had, and it's an inexpensive box for this type of quality. So inside the box is where all the electronics live. So first off, more about the box. The box comes with holes on the top cover and on the base that you could screw into. So you could build a plate, and like a mounting plate like I did here, and then screw in to hold it down. So what I did is on these holes, I opened them up to about 4 millimeters, and I put in a brass threaded insert so that I could have a robust connection and not, you could have used thread forming screws, but I chose to put a threaded insert in there. And so what I did is I 3D printed my panel, and this panel is almost to the max of my 3D printer bed, which is 256 millimeters. But this is just perfect for this size box. And so I can, I've made multiple iterations with this, with different ports, panel connectors. I can put logos, air holes, and these are switches. So as far as the communication, the wireless communication, so it's done via Epacs. These, I think each of these are about $140 each, and they can communicate via Bluetooth on both sides. This is the transmitter, this is the receiver, or you could have a wired connection. So between my Raspberry Pi, which is generating the audio, I have a wired 3.5 millimeter jack TRS, and then on the catcher side, I have you could have either Bluetooth, so the catcher can use their own Bluetooth earpiece, or you could have a wire connection to an earbud. The receiver is set to listen only, and that's per the rules, NFHS rules. It's only one way, coach and catcher only, no other positions. And so what I chose to do here, or what Erik did first, was that he, instead of using a mic to communicate the commands, he's using pre-recorded MP3s. So I found a free site to make MP3s, and I typed them in, and it gave me an MP3, and then I loaded that to the Raspberry Pi. So I don't have the speaker. Oh, I do have the speaker on. So these are all, I type these in, and you can make any phrase that you want, and then load them into your Raspberry Pi. Streamdeck that I'm using, so I'm using a 3x5 Streamdeck MK2 just because I had it. There's a 32 button version of this, the Streamdeck XL, which you could also use to have more plays on one screen. So the smaller one, you could have multiple screens, as many screens as you want. And so I just basically I have two, one for my pitch calling, and then another one for like, these are first and third plays. The other thing about this, I wanted to have the ability to charge. So this is all running off one battery. This is the battery. It's a 10,000 milliamp battery, very slim profile. It's got two USB-A's and one USB-C. And so the charging, so this Panama connector goes to that port, which will charge it when it's not in use. And then each of these USB-A ports power the two Raspberry Pis. I do have switches, so I wanted to be able to turn off the Raspberry Pis when they're not in use. So I have these little USB switches, USB-C switches. So one end goes to the power source, one end goes to the device. So one end battery, one end Raspberry Pi. I'm gonna turn this off now, and to get access to this, this will be screwed down, and so if I ever need to get access to the Raspberry Pis and make some changes, I would just pull off the Stream Deck, unplug it. So the Stream Deck is plugged in via USB-C, and then I would just lift. I could go in here and actually pull out one of the Ethernet ports here. So if on either of the Raspberry Pis, and then I could plug in an Ethernet cable that's connected to my home network, and then go into that either via a web GUI or SSH and do what I need to do to make changes or update or add more MP3s. But let me pull this back now so that you can see the insides. I will turn it around here. So everything is attached via Velcro to hold things in place. The Raspberry Pis, these are Raspberry Pi 4s. One's an A version, one's a B version. It doesn't matter. Both versions work, obviously. Raspberry Pi 5, the software for the playout that's sending the MP3s isn't ready for Raspberry Pi 5 yet. So if you're going to do this, you want to start with Raspberry Pi 4s or watch the Playoutbee website or Discord to see when that author releases a Raspberry Pi 4 version. So the battery, I talked about the battery. So we have battery, the two ports coming to these switches, and then this is the power going to each of the Raspberry Pis. Some notes about the battery. So cable management, it's not so bad right now, but you have to minimize cable length. And what I've done, as you can see in here, there's some right angle connectors that plug into the Raspberry Pi, and then on the battery, there's right angle USB-A to USB-C connections. So it just makes plugging and cable management a little bit easier. There's several variants of this that you could find on Amazon for pretty cheap. This is the panel mount power connector that charges the battery. So with this style, you could plug any cable you want. So I have a very flexible, not so short, but I could probably get a shorter cable for the power. The Raspberry Pis are set up to have static IPs, and they communicate through one Ethernet cable that connects both of the Ethernet ports. So you don't need a wireless network, you don't need an external network. This one cable allows these two to talk to each other. The Raspberry, I have, as far as the cooler, I put one of these. This is kind of a higher end heatsink fan assembly. I'm not sure what the temperature is going to be like out on the field, or when this is in the sun, possibly. So I have a PWM fan in heatsink, and what the PWM means, it allows me to set the fan to come on at a certain temperature. So in the firmware for the Raspberry Pis, I can set it to come on, say, at 60 degrees Celsius, and that would save power because the fan's not running all the time, and then also wear and tear on the fan. Let me talk about the two Raspberry Pis. So I guess I'll start with this one, the one right here. This one is running a piece of software called Playoutbee, and then this Raspberry Pi is running Companion. So Playoutbee, it's a piece of software that's similar to Blackmagic's HyperDeck. It allows you to send media, inject media into streams and live productions. A few things about this Raspberry Pi and its configuration. So I have it set in the firmware to output the audio through the 3.5 millimeter jack. Playoutbee requires a HDMI connection. I hope the author of that piece of software changes that. But it won't work if you don't have if there's not an HDMI cable installed. So to get around that, what I have here is a micro. It's either micro or mini HDMI to full-size HDMI converter, and then this piece is a dummy HDMI connector. So it thinks that there's an HDMI connector installed, but there really isn't. And then this thing is cantilevered over off the edge of the Raspberry Pi, and so I have a little bit of 3D printed block there to kind of support it, so you don't damage that connector. Now, as far as the other Raspberry Pi, this is the Pi that's running Companion software. And Companion software, it interfaces with Streamdecks and other pieces of equipment. So again, this is used in live broadcasting. If someone wants to control a camera or say a Blackmagic ATM switcher or other devices, this software can make the connection between this piece of hardware, the Stream Deck, and whatever else. So what I'm using this for is that there's a plug-in per se that connects, Companion can connect to a Stream Deck to Playoutbee and send messages or commands to play an MP3. This Companion Pi, so Companion software is free. It works on PC and I believe Mac, and I'm using the Raspberry Pi version. And then the Companion Pi connects to the Stream Deck via USB-C. So you may wonder why there are two Raspberry Pis, and can you put all the software on one? At this moment, the answer to that is no, and the reason is there's some software incompatibilities. Playoutbee and Companion, they have software requirements 32-bit and 64-bit. I'm not sure which one's which, but I can't. I have not found a way to put both pieces of software and make them work on one Raspberry Pi. It'd be ideal if I could do that. That would save some cost and simplify the box a little bit. But for now, it has to be two Pis. I haven't tested yet how long this will last in the field. That's my next thing to do. I'm sure it'll last at least 2 hours. The question is, can it last all day? 3 games in a tournament style. But I'll do that test. I'm also going to do some thermal testing, make sure that it performs when it's under the sun and in the heat. And one thing about the Epak, so this is pretty bulky. These things I think were designed to go on a coach's hip, but and then they just kind of, an afterthought here was to put it in a pouch and put it on the back of a catcher. So this is quite bulky. If you know the ones that I've seen in the College World Series and MLB, they're about half the size. So I've seen, you know, these, they make radios. Other companies make radios that are much smaller. Of course, they're much more expensive. But I think with this, there might be an opportunity to make this smaller. And there's some functions on here that we don't necessarily need. So that might be in the next project, is to try and scale this down a little bit. Take the card out of here and put it into a smaller 3D printed box, into a smaller pouch, just to make it lighter and less of a nuisance to the catcher. Does have it has like a camera style battery, so have to accommodate that. It's pretty big, but we'll see how this works.
Just watching the College World Series and noticed that the Tennessee catcher is wearing this GSC device on his back, connected to his ear via a headset. So looking that up, the GSC is a communication package. This company, Sideline Power, makes a bunch of different packages for different sports, but you can see how expensive these packages are. So one coach, one player, $1,600, and then it goes up in price depending on if you want, you know, different levels of audio quality, different number of talking routes, security, encryption. So it's quite expensive for the system. And from what I can tell, this Sideline Power is using Cobalt Plus transmitter and receiver. And I don't know what the difference between GSC and Cobalt Plus is, but this by 1C, 2C system, $1,850. And then I also noticed the Tennessee catcher, he was wearing a wrist device as well. And I think it's this Go Route device. So this one operates off of cellular. So a coach would have their cell phone, have an app on their cell phone, and the catcher wears a iWatch type device, and it sends the signals over cellular. So this, it says it's $525 a year, but there's a subscription service, right? And this email, he's comparing it to other services. But it's funny, during the game, I saw the catcher pointing at the wrist device and looking at the dugout. So I think there was an issue with it. This might not be that great on cellular in a big stadium when there's a ton of network congestion with everyone's cell phones. So he, in a few innings later, I saw that this was removed from his wrist and he was back to only using this transmitter. And the Texas A&M catcher was also wearing the exact same pouch on his back. Interesting how expensive these things are. I don't think I mentioned my BOM cost for my system. So I'm about at $850 BOM cost for everything that I showed in this video, and that's including tax. So not including any of my labor, just pure parts cost and tax, it's about $850. Now, I had a lot of those things. I had the Raspberry Pi, the Streamdeck, and a lot of the cables. So it was not, as expensive as a one-time purchase for me. But as you can see, it is a one-time purchase. It's not a subscription service. So I think in the long run, if it proves to be reliable, it's much better than these solutions. And there's no subscription. So now let me get into some of the maintenance of these Raspberry Pis and the software. So first thing, I have my box open and I am Ethernet connected into the Playoutbee Raspberry Pi. And this is very simple it's just a single web page. Playoutbee :3000 is the port, and this is how you look at what's loaded, all the media. So I have all these MP3s that are here and loaded up, and if you want to add more, you simply hit the plus, and then you go to your drive, and then you load them into the drive, into the Playoutbee. So as far as the MP3s, I went to a free site to generate MP3s. There's a ton of them out there. This is the one that I used. It's free text to speech, and then you could just type in what you want. For Seam, you can pick the voice that you want. Do you want a male, female, what language? So I picked myself. Matthew is the voice, but I could switch this to a female. So you can play around this. There's other sites that do this, but this is just the one that I found for free. Okay, this is the Companion Pi interface. And in order to make changes like add new MP3s and configure the buttons, you have to first off be connected via an Ethernet to your Companion Pi, but you also need, the Companion Pi needs to be connected to the Playoutbee Companion Pi so that it can see the MP3s. So I have my box open right now, I'm showing a picture of it. I have an Ethernet switch. This is just an inexpensive Ubiquiti Flex Mini 5-port switch, I believe it is. And it's powered by USB-C. And then I have some short Ethernet cables going to each of the Raspberry Pis, and then one going back to my home network switch. And so to get into a Companion, you just go to the IP. This is the static IP of the Companion Pi. And then I've added a connection. So here's an example. I was talking about all the type of connections that the Companion can connect to. So there's just hundreds of them. And so I found the Playoutbee connection, I added it, and then as far as setup, it's just simple. It's just, you just enter the target IP of the device. And so I have 192.168.1.2 is Playoutbee, and 1.3 is the Companion Pi. And then to configure this, you just click in buttons, and it shows a Streamdeck XL 32 button version, but I have the 15 button version. And then here's where you can configure your layout, and you can do as many pages as you want. You can customize it. So if I click on a button, this is how you can customize it. You can put in basic text, and you can change the font, the background color, the text color, the positioning. You could even upload images. You can get really fancy with this. So I just kept it simple, of a black background with white text. And then there's a thing called feedback. So once you press the button, so I'll do test. A feedback is what happens after you press it. So in this particular instance, when I press a button, it changes the background to green and the text to black. So this is just an indication that that button was pressed, but you don't have to do that. One thing to note, if I go back to step one, so this is setting up you're basically creating a macro, or the instructions. When you hit that button, what's it going to do with Playoutbee? So what I've done here is, when the buttons, you can get very fancy here. You could do an action when you press a button, and then do another action when you release a button. You can add delays. You can have a sequence of events. And so my first sequence is to select a clip. And this took a little bit of playing around and figuring out how to do this. And I still need to tweak this a little bit, but the first step is select a clip, and you have to enter a clip ID. So what's the clip ID? This is something that I wish the software creator on Playoutbee would fix. I don't know what clip 15 is, really. I don't know. I need to know what that is, but I found kind of a little hack here. if you go to presets and go to variables and click on Byte Hive Playoutbee, you will see all your MP3s that are listed. And this is why you need to be connected to the Playoutbee via switch, so that both of these are talking to it. Because at first when I tried this, I wasn't connected. I was only connected to the companion, and I didn't see all this information. So here's all my MP3s. And then you can see asset name. So asset number 15 is 2Seam, right? And I will go back here, and I believe I have an issue with one of these. Let me go. So this should be non-competitive, clip number 19. Let me go to presets, variables, Playoutbee. So non-competitive pitch is actually number 17. So I'm going to go back and fix that. Go to buttons, non-competitive, and change this to 17. And another thing that I found out with Playoutbee, just a nuance here, is that you have to stop the clip. So you have to add a delay. You can't just put a delay of 0 and with stop, because then that will never will never stop it will stop it and won't play it. So first thing is select the clip. Second action is to play the clip, no delay. And I may actually, this is one I may change, because I'm noticing if I switch quickly between the buttons, you hear a little bit of, it's like the last clip was cut off. Sometimes it happens all the time. So maybe I need to play with this and add a little bit of a delay here. But then to stop it, you do have to stop it, or else you won't, when you hit the next button, it won't take. So you have to enter this command, and you need to add a delay, because if you like I said, if you just hit 0 for the delay, it's not going to even play the clip at all. So you have to kind of figure out how long is your clip. So if you have a long word like non-competitive, you need a long delay. I think I have 1,000 for there. For this one, I have 750 for 2Seam. Okay. And let me fix, I think this is another one that has a problem. Variables, runner. So my idea here is if the coaches know the other team is stealing, they can just mash the runner button multiple times to let the catcher know if he's not, if he doesn't know. So runner, I already forgot, what was that? Variables. Runner is 19. So see, I have the wrong one. So let me fix that to runner. Okay. And then I don't have any other actions. Like if you release a button, you can do other actions. I don't have that. Like I have the feedback. I don't have a feedback on runner. I do. Let's take inside, for example. I do have a feedback. So when you click on that, it does change to green. I don't have any additional steps. Let me go back to runner. No feedback. Okay. So that's how you load your MP3s and configure your Streamdeck. So there's plays, this command right here, this will just move to page 2. There's some stock commands in here that you can add in, like if you wanted to have an arrow to go to the next page, you can do that. If you have a bigger Streamdeck, you can add more stuff here. But my page 2, these are all plays for when there are runners on first and third, and we need to run a play, and then this button just takes you back to page 1. But I think that's about it. It's pretty simple. It was a little bit tricky first knowing where to find the clip ID numbers, and then you adding this select, play, and stop. That took a little bit of playing around, and of course a delay. The other thing is that I want to fix that problem. I said that sometimes there's a little bit of a cutoff or early the prior clip plays, and I also another thing about the delay for stopping. You need that if you want to be able to hit a button multiple times. You need to kind of adjust this delay so that you can mash the button quickly. Like, so you don't want it to go, if you had a really long delay, you just hit the button, nothing would happen. So you want the delay long enough to play the entire phrase, word, and then stop, and then you can immediately press it again, just in case for those instances where you have 3B commands like the runner. Another thing you can do here is that, and I suggest I should probably do this myself. In fact, I'm going to do it right now. So this whole configuration from the connection to the Playoutbee Pi and all your buttons, it takes a while to set that up. So I would export the whole thing to a file and save it. So just in case something happens, you have a backup and can reload it